Hey guys, in this video we're talking about whether you should rent or buy here in 2024 if you're looking at housing in the Salt Lake City market. Whether you're looking at the metro area, you want to be in the city itself, or out in one of the suburbs, we're going to talk about a lot of information that you need to know if you're looking at renting a place or if you're looking at buying a place. Of course, there's going to be pros and cons to each one, and it's going to come down to what makes the most sense for you and your family and your financial future. So with that being said, we're going to cover a lot of information here in this video. As always, guys, my name is Cody Steck, your favorite Utah realtor. If I can do anything to assist you in that process of searching for a home, whether you're looking to buy or sell a home, unfortunately, we don't work with rentals, but looking to buy or sell, please reach out to me, call, text, or email me anytime. I would love to hear from you, and I would love to help you along in that journey. With that being said, let's jump into my screen here. We're going to take a look at some different information and talk about really what's happening out there in the market. So this current article right here says rent or buy, the current American housing dilemma. I've highlighted some things along throughout the article here. We're going to look at two different articles, and I'm also going to add some commentary and some insight and context around some of these things as we go through it. So we're going to start off with just the highlighted parts. Owning property was a big component of the American dream when the economy was strong following World War II. I thought this was an interesting stat. By the 1960s, approximately 68 out of 100 Americans could afford a home, but now only 43 out of 100 can. I'm not exactly sure how they're pulling this data. There's a lot of people that already own homes. Maybe this is people who, I don't know if they're looking at it and saying, hey, these people can go and buy a home today at today's interest rates, or these people have enough income, or exactly how they're looking at it. I don't know, but the number has dropped pretty substantially. In fact, over 25 out of 100 Americans can no longer afford a home. That's the difference here between 68 and 43. With low housing inventory, high mortgage rates, and inflation, choosing to rent or buy seems more like choosing the lesser of two evils. The median home price in the United States was $363,000 as of June 30th, 2024, which is a 3.8% increase in value in the last year. Zillow also reported the average rent is $2,054 per month. The reality of the American renter. The White House released a new action dubbed the Biden-Harris Housing Plan, seeking to lower housing costs by limiting rent increases and building more homes. It's kind of interesting. This comes from a national level. I've got three different points here. We're going to talk about each of them and give some information and context about just my thoughts about how this works. So number one is have Congress create legislation that would require landlords to cap rent increases on existing units at 5% or risk losing current valuable federal tax breaks. Now, I think this is ultimately something that can work. However, most of the time, 90% of the time, these rent caps, they do not work. Unfortunately, that causes a lot of landlords to actually increase rents over time, because if they don't, then they'll get to a point where they're out of that 5% threshold and can no longer raise rents more than that, and they won't be able to keep up with the overall market. So number one, we would actually see a lot of rents increase because of this new rule coming into effect. And also keep in mind, this only applies to existing units. This does not apply to new units who are going to be renting at at market rates at much higher amounts, generally because they're new construction. So in theory, people think this works. In my opinion, it does not work. Rent caps do not work 9 times out of 10. Number two is alter public land to make it suitable for the building of additional and affordable housing units. Again, now this is really interesting because public land, unless it's like built on a hillside, what are you going to do to a dirt field? I'm not sure exactly what you're going to do unless you're getting some type of tax break or subsidy from the federal government. There's really not much you can do to alter public land to make it more suitable for the building of additional affordable housing units. Frankly, this comes down to the zoning of different cities, different counties, and different states, right? The states, cities, and counties are the ones who set the zoning for a particular area and say, this is how many units can be built in this particular spot, right? That's why in some neighborhoods you see single family homes, others are townhomes, others are condos, and others are going to be high-rise apartment buildings. In my opinion, again, this is not something that can be controlled at the federal level. This needs to be controlled at the city or the county level. These are the people who are in that localized government situation where they actually have the ability to say, hey, rather than build 10 single family homes here, we're going to build 40 townhome units, or we're going to build 100 apartment units. If you go outside of America, this is actually much more common. I was recently in Europe not too long ago, and it's actually surprising how many townhome and duplex style units you see, as well as just small apartment buildings, right? They call them flats over there. It's really surprising to see how many are out there because the land is just so valuable. It's so expensive. They have to build these. So really, the second point, alter public land to make it more suitable, is just not frankly going to work. This has to be done at the city or the county level. Number three, along with building more affordable housing, also rehabilitating distressed housing and revitalizing neighborhoods. Again, I'm not sure how the federal government is planning to do this unless they're offering tax breaks or subsidies. That's just frankly not going to happen. Really, it comes down to the private sector. It's going to come down to private homeowners or people who are looking to fix and flip properties to revitalize these neighborhoods. And again, unfortunately, people generally say, hey, this happens in the downtown areas of each city. It's not just Salt Lake City, but you go outside of that, a lot of this is happening in the areas surrounding the city. And people are saying, hey, this gentrification is pushing people out. And unfortunately, I mean, that's just kind of what happens. If people want to rehabilitate distressed housing in these areas, it's going to be fixed up. It's going to have to make a return for somebody, because it doesn't make sense for most people, unless you're just a private homeowner and you love that, particular spot, which some people do, but most people don't. It has to make financial sense, right? You're not going to pour $100,000 into a property if you're only going to get $10,000 worth of value, right? There has to be a different balance to make that possible. Now, if we scroll down here a little bit further, I want to point out some additional stats. Zillow reported that following the COVID-19 pandemic, rental prices increased by 32.8% overall, including 3.5% higher over the last year. The most affordable metros for rents are Minneapolis, which is 20%, Salt Lake City, which is actually 20.5%, St. Louis, Austin, and Raleigh. So you've got Salt Lake at 20% for median income spent on typical rent. This means that it could be either due to low rents or it could be due to high incomes. So this is something that I was actually pretty surprised to see on here. But the thing that is really surprising here is rental prices increased by 32.8% overall. But if I come over here and look at cumulative inflation since 2020, as of June 2024, again, this is just Google telling me this, consumer price inflation in the United States has increased 21.78% since January of 2020. Quick note, this is actually higher than we saw in all of the 2010s. So in just 4.5 years, we've already exceeded the inflation number for 2010s, and we're quickly approaching what we saw in the 2000s and 1990s, and we're not even halfway through this decade. So pretty crazy to see. Obviously, inflation has gone crazy over the last couple of years, but they're saying that it increased 21.78%. And we're looking at 32.8% overall increases in rent. This means that there's a lack of supply and there's a lot of demand. There's a lot of people looking for housing. There's also a lot of people coming into the country who are now looking for housing as well. And this is putting a strain on prices, and this is why the market is growing in the way that it is. I also think there's probably a lot of people who have a lot of money, who have multiple homes that are sitting empty. And there's also a lot of foreign buyers who are purchasing property, even foreign governments. There was an interesting article that just came out about how China and India are buying land here in America that a lot of people don't know about, right? But this is happening. There's foreign buyers, whether it's from Canada or Mexico or China or Russia or somewhere else around the world. People are buying property here, and that's actually that's driving prices up here in this area. So something that's pretty interesting to see how much the rent increases are happening. Now I want to jump over here and actually take a look at this article here. This is talking about the Utah rental market softening, but for how long, right? So this kind of talks about, hey, should you rent or should you buy? Now let's talk about what's actually happening to the rental market overall. Again, real quick, guys, we don't work with rentals, but if you're looking to buy or sell real estate here in Utah, my team and I do service the entire state, and we'd love to be your go-to real estate resource of choice when it comes to buying or selling real estate. My information is here on the screen. Please call, text, or email me anytime. I absolutely love hearing from you guys and cannot wait to hear from you and how I can help you through your own individual situation. So let's talk about the Utah rental market softening. I've actually experienced this myself. I've had a couple of my own rental units that have turned over recently and had to place new tenants in them. One of them, we ended up getting the same rent that we already had in the unit. The other two, we actually were slightly lower than what we were getting with the past tenants. So we have seen that rental market soften just a little bit, which is not super uncommon because of what we're going to talk about here. There's a ton of apartments and a ton of housing units that are coming onto the market right now that started building over the last 12, 24, 36 months when the market was really good. So when interest rates were low, we saw a lot of building, we saw a lot of loans, we saw a lot of construction get started, and now those housing units are starting to come online. So that's why we're seeing such a big supply of inventory into the market. This is thanks, it says that right here, basically that exact same thing. This is thanks to a lot of new units currently hitting the market, prompting some landlords to offer more incentives to new tenants. We're going to talk about that. Personally, I am not a fan of incentives. I don't really understand it. It doesn't make financial sense, but let's finish the article and then we can talk about some math. So it goes into this. It says, hey, Rick Butterfield, he shows off the latest place to live in the Salt Lake City's Ballpark neighborhood. This is like South Salt Lake area. Butterfield is now offering an incentive, 1 month free rent for new tenants. The goal is to get people in and get them to be here. So let's talk about why the market is softening. 2 words, new construction. Essex said that the new supply has pushed asking rent prices down around 2.5% to 3.5% since January, prompting more landlords to offer incentives. We'll see rents go back up come probably late 2026 or early 2027. Now, I don't know where he's getting this information. That's a long way away, right? Late 2026, we're talking about almost 2 to 2.5 years away before he's thinking that rents are going to go back up. I personally actually think this is going to happen much quicker. I think that we'll probably start seeing rents increase going into the spring or summer of next year. So I do think that rents will probably be a little bit soft for the next couple months, which could be good if you're a renter in the market. Definitely, it's can be much more affordable to rent a place in the short term. But yeah, I do think that rents are going to increase going into next year. So personally, that's just my opinion. Late 2026, I don't know how he's coming up with that. That's almost 2.5, 3 years away. It just doesn't make sense. Coming back up here, let's talk about why people are offering incentives. So I just want to pull up a calculator here because I've never really understood this. This is just my personal opinion. But if you're offering a free month of rent for somebody to move in, why not just lower the rent price, right? If you're not being able to rent that property, lower the rent price and just get people in there at a price that people are willing to pay, right? The market is going to set itself. This is my opinion. Every time I've had rental units, if I'm not getting enough applicants at a certain dollar amount, I will drop the rent price until I start to get more interest. Sure enough, I just had this happen. We had a property listed at about $1,750. We weren't getting any traction. We dropped it to $1,700. We got a couple of leads, but nothing really great. Then we dropped it to $1,625 just because we needed a better tenant. We were running out of time, and boom, all of a sudden I had a perfect tenant, got it leased within a couple days, and got a tenant that has great credit, great income, and is excited to live in this place. So just dropping the price makes the most sense. I don't understand why people offer a free month of rent. Sure, it's maybe because they have 100 units and they don't want to drop the rent on all of those units. But offering a month of free rent kind of does the same thing in essence, right? If you have a place that rents for $2,000 a month, you divide that by 12 months. If you give away a free month of rent, you're basically giving up $166 per month to rent that unit. Why not just drop the price from $2,000 to $1,850? Right? Now you're only giving up $150 a month and you get the property rented sooner, which means less work, less headache, less advertising. You get somebody in there, you're also at a lower rent, which means that likely that person's going to stay for longer. And again, it doesn't even have to be that drastic. I don't think it has to be, such a substantial decrease in the rent price. If you take that 2,000 again, this says that asking rent prices were down about 2.5% to 3.5%. Even if we take the 3.5% of that, that's only a $70 decrease, right? So off of the $2,000, that means that you're coming down to about $1,930. So if you're willing to drop the price to $1,925 or $1,900 or $1,850, like we talked about, you're going to be able to get that property rented. So with that being said, guys, this wraps up the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one. I love making these videos for you, and I want to continue to provide this information for you. If I can help you in any way, please reach out, call, text, or email me anytime. And with that said, catch you in the next one.